Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do a basic hot water bottle cover, and it's up to you if you want to do a stitch pattern on one or both sides. So I'm going to show you some examples and show you some loom options. If you don't have one loom, you might have another loom, and that kind of thing. Adjustable loom is what you want, and you want some wedges, okay? Now, I did two options here. I did a 3/8 inch gauge and a 1/2 inch gauge. This isn't to say that you can't do another gauge. These are just the two I worked with. Okay, you could probably do a 5/8 inch. You could probably do a 1/4 inch gauge using different looms. And I'll tell you which looms they are, and I'll give you some basic measurements of your average hot water bottle, and that they generally work, and generally what you're trying to work your way down to. So first things first, this one was done on a 3/8 inch gauge, and the only thing I didn't like about my first drafts, which are these, is that it was a little tight here at the top. So I'm going to do a few less decreases than I had written, okay? And what you'll want, if you want to do a button system, then you can, but you're going to have to incorporate in like button holes. All right, but with me, I chose to do a zipper. And I didn't see a zipper version online, so sewing in a zipper I don't find is too bad when it comes to doing the sewing in zippers to knitted items. Okay, so that's my 3/8 inch gauge version, and this is my 1/2 inch gauge version done with a bulky yarn, okay? And as you can see, it also has the zipper. It was also a little tight up here, which I did not like. I did not want that kind of tightness. So I'm going to be changing that up, and I'm going to explain how to change that up. But again, you can do different stitch patterns on one side or the other. This is basically what I'm going to show you how to do. It's a really basic hot water bottle, okay? And what I can do is when you go to look at Ravelry or Cindy Wood, what I'll do is I'll provide a graphing on how to do the braided with the seed stitch and ribbing, and then this kind of basic cabling. So I'll give you a graph to show you how to make these, but the focus right now is making it a neutral hot water bottle cover, okay? And then the sky's the limit as to what you want to do, okay? So I've got some loom options, and I'll try to suggest some fiber options. Looking at it, it looks like it needs to be a cotton so that the heat can breathe through the yarn and you can get the heat, the full heat. My mother doesn't need a cover a lot of times, but my stepdad really enjoyed the covers. He thinks it makes it a perfect temperature. So if you're one who likes them really, really, really hot, you want to go with a finer gauge and a thinner yarn, and my suggestion is to use cotton. Now these two that I used are acrylic, and they do just fine on what they need to be. Okay, so some yarn options. For the 3/8 inch gauge, I'm using 78 pegs, okay? And so what you can use is if you have the large, not the extra large, just the large Universal X loom in the 3/8 inch gauge or in the 1/2 inch gauge, you can use those two looms for this project as well. If you have the universal hat looms with the wedges in the 3/8 or the 1/2 inch gauge, go for it. This is the 90 peg, and I have the other hat loom that is also can be used, and you definitely want a movable wedge, okay? So I've calculated everything up to be 78 stitches for the 3/8 inch gauge, and it's 60 stitches for the 1/2 inch gauge. Now, I'll give you the basic measurements. I'll give you some basic swatching, and you can gather whether you want to try to use a different gauge or not. I'll give you the calculations for how to figure it out from what measurements I have and everything, but it's really not that difficult. I managed to use the basic calculations for this and get this in a first try, okay? 2 different gauges. Not difficult. Okay, so you have the Universal Hat Loom by Cindy Wood. If you know of a KB loom that has the kind of versatility of the removable wedges, that's fine. You just make sure you have at least 78 pegs if you're doing the 3/8 inch gauge, okay? Now, if you're wanting to mess with the X loom, what you want to do is you want to count over from your starting point and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and put a wedge there. Okay, and over here is going to be a little adjusted. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 with the wedge over here. Okay, so you're going to need that. Then you're going to go back and you're going to go 1, 2, 3 and then put the wedge there, and the same thing over here with a 3. All right, and that's how you set up your loom to do the hot water bottle with your large universal X loom. That tells you that this can even replace your universal hat loom. It'll replace like 40 looms to get an X loom, okay? So that's how you set up the 3/8 inch gauge universal X loom, and you want the length here so that you can decrease, and you want to decrease on the sides. You don't want to decrease at all 4 angles. Okay. So I have an older universal hat loom in the 1/2 inch gauge, but the problem is it was before they started setting the pegs up right beside each other. And so it can be kind of wonky for me to show that, but their newest ones are all set up like the one I just showed you in these, okay? So you can also use the large universal X loom, okay, in the 1/2 inch gauge. And the way you want to set it up is you want to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 with the wedges here. And you want to do the same thing on the other side because it's 60. And what you want to do is you want to count back 3, 1, 2, 3, put a wedge there. Same thing here. That should give you approximately 60 pegs. Count out just to make sure, all right? So what I'm going to show you is in the 3/8 inch gauge, all right? And the reason I'm going to show you, let me get this thing focused back in. The reason I'm going to show you in the 3/8 inch gauge is I'm going to use the, what is it, the ice cream, or it's a DK weight, I'm pretty sure, worsted or DK weight. And Lion's brand, I believe it's ice cream. I'm going to use that yarn for this project. Now, if you're wanting to use the 1/2 inch gauge, I'll give you a general gauging, okay? I usually do 10 rows of a garter stitch. Personally, you can use 10 rows of seed stitch. I do it about the same. It doesn't matter. On the 3/8 or the 1/2 inch gauge, I do about 10 to 15 at the bottom, okay? And that gives you a flat edge to go in and be able to sew easily, okay? I don't do any special cast on, okay? I think I do just basic E-rope cast on. You can do chain cast on. It might make it easier to sew on the zipper, see what you're doing. Okay, so to start out, I cast on all the pegs, and I do about 10 to 15 rows of a garter or any stitch that doesn't roll, okay? Then I'm going to subtract that from the total rows. So the total rows, I believe, is 80 rows here, and it's 80 rows for the 3/8 inch gauge, and you'll need to minus however many you do for the garter stitch. So it's 80 rows total, with a total of 10 decreases. That's a decrease for every single row, so you're decreasing every single row. So that's 10 more rows for a total of 90 rows, okay? Now, then I do 23 rows for the neck. If you want it to fold down, you'll want to double that and do basically 46 to 50 rows, okay, in a rib stitch. All right, so that gets you a basic guide there. Okay, so on the 1/2 inch gauge, it says that it's 62 rows total. So you'll definitely want to minus the 9 decreases and the however many rows of garter. Okay, so you'll need to minus that from the 62. All right, and that'll give you a base there. All right, now it's 18 rows for non-folded. If you want it folded, you'll probably want to go to about 35 rows. Okay, all right, and you'll do the rib stitch. All right, so that's your basics. If you want to click on a link below, it'll take you to get the written instructions and some graph work to be able to make what I've done here. Okay, all right, so I'm going to start off and I'm going to show you the basics of how to make this. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to go ahead and do a E-wrap cast on. You can do whatever cast on you prefer. You can do a chain cast on. It's up to you as to what exactly that you want to use, okay? But what you'll probably want to do is start off with something that kind of splits the loom in half. And the reason why I'm using the universal hat loom is because you can literally split it in half mentally. It's a little easier to show you the split in half. So this is like the front and this is the back. And so it makes it a little easier when you're doing a stitch patterning to keep up with it. It'll be a little bit more difficult to keep up with the stitch patterning on one half rather than the other on the X looms, but you can use the X looms, so don't hesitate to use them. All right, so we're just going to do an E-wrap all the way around, and we're going to be working circularly, okay? Use any cast on method that you prefer. If there's one that you like better, go for it, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and E-wrap cast on, and go ahead and knit your first row, okay? Okay, so we're ready to start doing our first row. So we've E-wrap cast on, and what you want to do is you want to knit your first row. I'm going to do a garter stitch. You could do a seed stitch. It's whatever you choose, okay? This is more or less a guideline so that you can get a base and then run from there, okay? So what you want to do is you just want to knit a row. So go ahead and pause the video and knit you a row, okay? Okay, we're on our second row of a 2-row set when it comes to garter stitch. And so what we want to do is we want to purl our way around, and we'll do a row of purl. And this is a garter stitch edging, which looks just like that, okay? So you have a choice. You can do 10, 15 rows of a garter stitch. It's entirely up to you, okay? So I'm gonna say go ahead and pause the video and complete your 10 to 15 rows of a garter stitch, okay, or a seed stitch. It's entirely up to you, and then I'll come back and show you what the next section is, okay? And it's the same thing on the 1/2 inch gauge. You want to go ahead and cast on all of them, do a row of knit, a row of purl, do a number of rows, okay? So it's no different. Do it on the 1/2 inch gauge. It's just using all the pegs, okay? All right, so go ahead and pause the video and get that much done, and when we come back, we'll be ready to do the next section. Okay, as you can see, I have done 15 rows here of a garter stitch, but if no matter what, you just want to subtract that from the total. I believe, because I'm working the 3/8 inch gauge, you want to do a total of 80 rows, so minus 15 from that. And on the 1/2 inch gauge is 60, so you want to minus 10 to 15 from that, okay? So at this point, and if you're working on a row counter, you just want to do your row counter up to 80 rows, or 60, depending on the loom you're using. So at this point, we're just going to knit our way around, round and round and round and round, for a total of, I believe it's going to be, 65 stitches or something along those lines. Yeah, so, 65 rows, I think it is. Okay, so just go round and round till your total between your garter and your stockinette stitch is 80. Now the challenging part will be the neck and sewing on the zipper, so that's where we're going to put more focus. We're not putting a whole lot of focus on this, so go ahead and complete your total rows. Remember, with the garter stitch and the stockinette, all should total 80 rows. I think you have 65 more rows to do in stockinette if you're on here, okay? Let's go ahead and pause the video, get that much done, and when we come back, we'll be ready to start the decreasing and the neck. Okay, so as you can see, I have done my 65 rows, and there's my garter stitch at the bottom. Now I'm ready to do my decrease section. And so at this point, it says that we need to do 10 decreases, okay? What that means, okay? I like to do my first one over here to wedge decrease. So you're going to loosen your washer, shove the wedge down to the next slot. Then you're going to take these outside stitches, you're going to put them onto the wedge pegs. Alright, now you want to do the same thing over here, except you have the problem of your starting point is on that. So what I like to do is to knit a couple around, then so I knit around some so that I get away from that starting stitch, and then I'm going to push that down after I loosen the washer, tighten the washer, take those outside stitches and move them in. Now what you can do is you can go ahead and do your stitch patterning here after you always want to decrease this one first. You can go ahead and do your stitch patterning and work your way around. As you're working your way around, you want to stop just before here and go ahead and decrease. But I like to jump the gun and go ahead and decrease so I don't have to forget later once I get all the way around. Oh, I forgot to decrease. It gets done. So I usually just knit a few over, go ahead and do the decrease so that it's done and out of the way. And that makes it a little easier to deal with. Okay, but how it's going to be written is you're going to decrease this one, work your way around, go ahead and decrease this one, and then work your way and then decrease. So that's how I'm going to explain it in the written pattern, but here's how I typically do it. I go ahead and decrease this side. I knit over a few so that it's away from my wedge and decrease over here, okay? All right, so you're going to do this process for every row for a total of 10 times. You might want to use a row counter for this. So this is going to be row, actually it's going, because we've had a total of 80 rows. You're wanting to get a total of about 90 rows for the whole thing, not including the neck area, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to start knitting your way over. Okay, I'll try my best to keep this in camera. The problem when you start working up into bigger looms. Alright, you're just going to knit your way over. Okay, and then when you get to the wedge pegs, this is how I like to do it. Take it tip down, grab both, alright, and toss them both over, okay? And go in and take the two and toss the both over. Alright. And knit my way to the other side. Okay, go over here and you knit your wedges in, and you're back to your starting point. Okay, You can't really increase that many times, but you can certainly decrease that many times. So then you want to go ahead and you want to decrease down again. Move over, move over. You want to knit 3, just to get you away from that wedge. Move your wedge down. And go ahead and do this. Increasing with every row is not as easy as just decreasing with every row. But I decrease with every row for 10 rows. Okay, so you're going to repeat that a total of 10 times. So we've already done 1. Alright, so go ahead and pause the video, decrease your 10 times, which means you should be at row 90. Alright, so you should be at row 90 when you're done. Then we'll be ready to start the neck area. Now if you're doing a 1/2 inch gauge, you'll want to be doing the same concept. You're only going to do 8 or 9 decreases, okay, on both sides. Alright, so pause the video and get that much done, and then we'll come back and be ready to do the neck area. Okay, as you can see, we have decreased down our 10, and we are ready to do the next section. Now, I realize this is actually peg 1, but I went ahead and knitted it, okay? And I'm gonna go here, as this is my starting point here for keeping up with my rib stitch. Okay, what you want to do, and this is up to you, you can do a seed stitch, you can do a rib stitch, you can do a garter stitch. You want to do approximately 28 rows for your neck area. If you want it to fold down, you want to double that, you want to do 46 rows. Okay, so first things first, I like to do a 4, so I'm doing knit 2, purl 2, okay? I'm going to do this all the way around, knit 2, purl 2, and I'm going to continue this, making sure it all lines up with the knit 2, purl 2 for a rib stitch, and I'm going to do this for either 22, 23, or 46 rows, okay? And then we'll be ready to bind off. So go ahead and pause the video and get your neck area done, and then we can come back and be working on our next section, which is where we're going to bind off. And when we do that, we'll be ready to start working on adding a zipper. So I hope you have a 7-inch zipper ready. That's about the shortest zipper you can get on average, and it works just fine for this. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and finish up this, and we should be ready to bind off when we come back, and then we'll be ready to sew the zipper. So we're actually almost done. Okay. Now, you can tell we're off a little bit because we started with 2 knits over here. Okay, so we know we've done 2 purls here, and we run into something that's a little off here. To break it up, all you have to do is do a knit 1, purl 1, okay? So you can knit 1 and purl 1, and you'll be fine, okay? And then go back to knitting 2 and purling 2, okay? Sometimes it'll show up even, and You may want to calculate it for or not, but it's not going to really make much of a difference because this is going to be on the side. You're not going to see it as obviously as if you were, you know, if you had it right here. This is your front and this is your back. That's where you're going to see it. You're not going to see it on the side, and it's going to be folded down, okay? So go ahead and pause the video, get your either 23 or 46 rows done, and then we will come back and be ready to do the next section. Okay, so as you can see, I chose to do the 46 rows. Okay, there's my neck. So you can see this is looking more like a hot water bottle cover. At this point, what you want to start doing is you want to start binding off. Okay, so knit the next stitch, take it back one, toss the bottom loop over, and move it over. Alright, now I'm going to kind of do a modified bind off where you knit two, take one back, toss the bottom loop over. I kind of want it loose so that I can fold it back some, okay? So you're going to come around, going to knit that stitch again, knit the next stitch, take it back one, toss the bottom loop over, and move it over one. And knit stitch one and two. Take the second stitch back to the first peg, toss the bottom loop over, move over. Knit stitch one and two. And you're going to keep this up all the way around. This is a modified bind off that Loom Hat does, okay? And what it does is it allows it to be stretchy but not too stretchy, and a clean look, not sloppy at the end, and will fold down and give you a lot more give, okay? So go ahead and pause the video, get your bind off done, and then we'll come back and we'll start messing with the zipper and the cast on area, okay? Okay, so as you can see, I've done my bind off and how nicely and clean it is, and it folds down nicely and everything. But you may think it's a little short down here, but you got to keep in mind that this is a garter stitch. It tends to want to scrunch up, and you're going to be putting heat inside of this, and these stitches are going to slowly stretch out, okay? So you got to keep that in mind. This is not really too short. You just got to be able to go in and get those stitches to stretch out. All right, as you can see, it's fine. All right, but if you don't like this so snug, you can add 10 rows, okay? If you're doing the 3/8. I'd probably only add about 5 if you're doing the 1/2 inch gauge. Okay, so you want an all-purpose zipper, 7 inches, that kind of thing. All right, and I'm going to take this off for now. As I said, this fits generally a standardized heating pad, okay? And if you want to try to naturally stretch it out more, you can press the actual you can press it. Okay, so I kind of want my cast on tighter. I'm going to do it, tighten my cast. I'm going to pull that on my bridge. It connects in the first and the last stitch, and go in and tighten it. You don't have to do this, but I find it's going to be easier when I go in to actually sew it on to have a tighter stitch, because I'm just going to be using needle and thread. Okay, so go ahead and tighten your cast on. Okay, and then what you'll be ready to do is go in and start pinning in that zipper. Okay, you want to get you a whole bunch of safety pins, okay? And you want to just go in and do 1/2, and then you'll go in and do the other half, and you have to unzip it to do the other half, but I'll show you how that's done, okay? If you already know how to sew in the zipper, go for it. Again, you can press this to make it already start to flatten out. before the first time you use the heating pad with it, okay? So go ahead and pause the video, tighten your cast on, and then I'll show you how to add the zipper. Okay, as you can see, I've tightened my cast on. I have a fairly long tail here, which you can cut because I am going to use thread and everything. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to find the most corner, okay, and you want to pin it down, okay. So your goal is to take safety pins and pin it down. You want to do them kind of close, okay. Alright. Now do keep in mind if it's a little short that when you start adding heat to the hot water bottle and everything, it'll start stretching out the stitch work, because you got to think the garter stitch, it's really tight and shortens it some. But if you did a seed stitch, you'll probably be fine. Okay, so you're just going to do this all the way to the end. Okay, and you want these pins in here. You don't want to use just regular pins. You want safety pins. You want it locked in because it's a loose stitching, which means your pins can come out, and you don't want that. You can mess up you sewing in your zipper. All right. Okay. And when you sew the zipper down, you want to stay close to the edge of the garment as possible, okay? So we're almost to the end, and then you'll need to start pinning your way back up the other direction. Okay. Okay. So there you have that, all right, and you'll see that it goes to the very edge. Now what you want to do is start trying to pin it this way, all right, in the other half. And what you want to do is shove those ends in, and you can tack them down up in there later, okay. So what you want to do now is start pinning your way back, all right. Now it'll get more difficult the closer you get to the other end. Okay. But you want to pin it in. And then you want to take a needle and thread of the closest color you've got and sew it in. Okay. Now you could try a button system, but if you choose to do that, then you're going to have to change up your cast on. You're going to have to add loops. You're going to have to figure out buttons and buttonholes is your problem. Okay. So that's the problem you run into if you want to do it a little different of a method. Okay, when you start getting up here, you have to make sure that you don't accidentally attach the other half, okay? And that's mostly going to be done by feel. Okay, so when you think you've got it most of the way, now what you want to do is you want to take just a regular needle and thread, nothing special, needle and thread, going to sew it down. I like to do a double so that it's strong. Take the two ends, rip it, twist, pull. Okay, so start on one side or the other. And if you want to find it a little easier, you can open it up, but make sure that you don't sew into the teeth, all right? So I'm going to send this up. Okay, so you can do it this way, or you can go in and do smaller stitches where you go up and in. Depends on how tight you want your zipper. I kind of want mine tight, so I'm going to do up and down. Okay? So you want to do this all the way around, all right? You just keep going in and sewing again. Okay, and as you finish with this section, you can take out a pin, okay? So you can take out the pin as you go by it, okay? So I'll be able to take that gold one out here in just a second, all right? So you send that through, and you send it through, back through there, and you want to try to keep as close to the edge of the material as possible, okay? While not interfering with the teeth, all right? And you see, there you have it, okay? You want to do this all the way around, okay? So you're going to go ahead and you do this all the way around the edge, all the way back down here, okay? And you want to avoid putting any stitches in those teeth, all right? So once you do that, then you want to weave in your ends. You can press the hot water bottle cover if you would like, okay? But I find that just putting the hot water bottle in there with some hot water and just using it actually stretches it out, all right? So sew up your zipper, and then weave your ends in, and then you're done. That's all there is to it.